I never expected to find my father 8 years later, and the tears flowed when I saw those same eyes the moment I stepped into that dimly lit cafe. A chill ran down my spine. The air was heavy with unspoken secrets, thick like fog, blurring the world outside. I could feel my heart thumping in my chest, each beat louder than the last. I had been chasing shadows for so long, desperately hoping to piece together the fragments of my past. The emptiness my father left echoed in every corner of my life. Memories had morphed into ghosts. I often sat in silence, craving connection. I pulled at my sleeve, my fingers trembling with anticipation. I could barely breathe. The photo I always carried felt like a weight in my pocket, burning against my thigh, and then there he was. A warm glint of recognition, yet the strangest mix of uncertainty washed over me. His hair, the same wiry texture. The way he clenched his jaw when he was deep in thought. My breath caught as I noticed his eyes, those piercing blue eyes, like fragments of a dream. A gasp escaped my lips, a small sound in the midst of the cafe's chatter. It felt like the world slowed down. Time froze, and my insides twisted into knots. Is it really him? I mumbled to myself. The dim light cast shadows across his face, and I could barely question how a man I had yearned to find could leave me feeling so lost. The swirling emotions crashed over me: hope, betrayal, fear, each wave a reminder of the years spent wondering why he vanished without a trace. My mind raced. How do I approach him? Would he recognize me? Would he even want to? I felt like a character in a movie, a stranger watching someone else's life unfold. My heart thundered in my ears as I imagined the stories he might have. The choices he made. The sacrifices. My own life had crumbled without him, and yet he sat there, apparently unchanged. This moment was electric. The tension oozed around us, thick and undeniable. People began to notice. Their eyes darted between us, whispers floated through the air. Is that? No way. He looks just like her. I felt their judgment like fizzy soda on my skin, bubbling with disbelief and intrigue. It was a tangible energy, thickening the air. A memory flashed through my mind: the last time I saw him. How he had walked away, leaving behind echoes of laughter and promise. The warmth of his embrace faded with each passing year. Now, here we were. A universe apart, yet more connected than I ever thought possible. Against the backdrop of chatter and clinking cups, I made my move. My feet felt like lead as I approached his table. The closer I got, the more real it all became. The closer those same eyes came into focus, the more my heart raced. Was I ready for the answers hidden within his gaze? And just as I reached out, my fingers brushing the edge of his table, he looked up. Our eyes met, and the world around us disappeared. Who are you? He whispered, a flicker of recognition in his voice, but it was shadowed by confusion. In that instant, every question I had ever asked myself hung in the air like a haunting melody, waiting for me to speak. Would I dare to unravel the truth? Or would the fear of what lay ahead hold me back? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The din of the cafe faded into an echo, replaced by the rapid drumming of my heart. His question hung between us, a fragile thread connecting our disparate worlds. I blinked, his gaze searching mine, unearthing fear and vulnerability I had buried beneath layers of bravado. Dad? The words slipped from my lips, thick and tentative. Just saying it felt surreal. What awaited me in that simple acknowledgement? My thoughts spiraled. Would he embrace me? Or would he turn away, as he had once before, his brow furrowed, confusion clouding those striking blue eyes? I could see the memories flickering across his mind like lightning. Who was this girl, and why did she not resemble the daughter he had lost? The fear of rejection loomed, heavier than the air in the crowded cafe. "Do I know you?" he finally asked, a tremor in his voice that hinted at a crack in his composure. I struggled with my response, the tremors of my own uncertainty threatening to overpower me. I gestured towards the empty chair across from him, needing to fill the space with something other than silence. Can we talk?" He hesitated, the weight of my request evident in the furrow of his brow. Just when I feared he would refuse, he gestured in acquiescence, sinking into small talk, asking the barista for another cup of coffee while keeping an eye on me, like I might vanish. I watched him, that old fear creeping back, saying that trusting him again would be akin to setting myself aflame. But I was tired of running, tired of living in shadows. "I've missed you," I said, my voice cracking. The mere confession made a lump rise in my throat, and I fought it back with sheer will. "I searched for you, all these years." His eyes softened, and it became clear he hadn't expected such honesty. He set down his coffee and leaned back, as if the revelation had physically pushed him away. "Why now?" "Because I finally found you," I answered, suddenly feeling small. 8 years, and I thought I was ready, but now I'm here, and I don't know how to start. He studied me, and for a fleeting moment, I glimpsed what could have been a father gazing at his daughter with love, acceptance, a lifetime of lost moments waiting to be rediscovered. But reality hollowed that image, leaving behind a question mark heavy with the weight of our fractured past. "I didn't leave by choice, you know," he said, defensiveness creeping into his voice. "No." I blurted, a wave of frustration washing over me. "I heard the stories. I want to understand, I do. But you have to help me." We traded breaths, each one heavy with unfulfilled longing and bewilderment, like two planets circling each other yet unable to connect. His blue eyes searched my face, and I could see a flicker of something hopeful, a faint ember of connection igniting amongst our doubts. "Why did you even come here?" he asked after a long moment, the corner of his mouth quirking in a sardonic half-smile, masking his vulnerability. That I took a breath, sinking into the weight of my truth. "I learned to fight shadows. To find the light. And I found you." He leaned forward, intensity radiating from him. "You don't know what you're asking." I felt the rug pulled out from under me at his words, my heart skipping an erratic beat. "Maybe I don't, but I'm here now. Aren't you at least going to try?" For a moment, the world around us faded away, the cafe buzzing in the background as we engaged in our private turmoil. Then, out of nowhere, a voice interrupted. A woman approached our table. I didn't recognize her, but she glanced at my father, her features a mix of concern and recognition. "John, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you." The tightness in my chest transformed into an aching knot. "Just give me a second," he replied, clearly flustered, his attention wavering between me and this unexpected visitor. The woman frowned, her gaze flicked to me with a hint of confusion. "You haven't told her, have you?" An invisible wall slammed down in an instant, a fracture splitting the fragile connection I had barely begun to build. Pain surged in my chest, a tidal wave of emotions washed over me, pulling me under. "What is happening?" I stammered, the sense of betrayal creeping back in, echoing my past fears. As the woman interjected, hoping to diffuse the tension, I caught John staring at her, his expression inscrutable yet layered with deep regret, like a man torn at the seams. With a shuddering breath, I realized, whatever bond one thought we shared was slipping, drowning in a flood of secrets I hadn't even begun to comprehend. And as the woman leaned closer, murmuring something to him that I couldn't hear, I felt a crack of fear worming its way through me. "Dad, what aren't you telling me?" The question emerged, tinged with anger and desperation. The cafe seemed to recede, and in that moment suspended in time, the fate of our reunion hung by the thinnest of threads. The air around us tightened, the palpable tension wrapping around my heart like a vice. My father's eyes darted between me and the woman, a storm of complicated emotions battling behind their bright facade. I held my breath, searching for answers in the furrows of his brow, in the way he clenched his fist around his coffee cup. Whatever secret lay between them felt like a living entity, creeping into the space we had just begun to fill with tentative hope. The woman's voice broke through my racing thoughts, smooth yet urgent. "I just came to check on you. You've been through so much, John. We can't ignore this. Her words dripped with concern, genuine yet laced with something darker. What do you mean, we can't ignore this? I interjected, my voice trembling, the anger bubbling just under the surface. I wanted to claw my way through the layers of uncertainty, to dismantle the walls they were building in front of my own longing. That it's not time for this, my father said, his voice hardening. He shifted his gaze back to me, searching for solace in my hurt expression. Not yet, not yet? I echoed, feeling the ground beneath my feet begin to sway. How much longer do you think I can wait? I took a deep, shuddering breath, willing myself to stay grounded. You've already lost 8 years with me. What more do you want? John's shoulders sagged at my words, like a deflated balloon we both wished could float. I'm trying to protect you, he said, but the pit in my stomach deepened at the way his voice cracked, suggesting that perhaps he was trying to protect himself more than me. Protect me from what? I pressed, desperation creeping into my tone. From the truth? Because every minute that passes feels more like a lie. The woman opened her mouth as if to argue, but John shot her a pleading look, silencing her. An understanding seemed to pass between them, a coalescing of pains neither of them could adequately express. The tightrope we were walking on began to fray, the abyss below beckoning. Can we just talk? Privately? I pleaded, feeling too exposed under their scrutiny. Without another word, he turned his gaze upon her, and with a mix of reluctance and reassurance, he nodded. Can you give us a moment? Her expression shifted, annoyance creeping in again. John, I think you're making a mistake. You don't know what you're risking. It's my risk to take, he replied, the steel creeping back into his voice. As she stepped back, hurt glimmering in her eyes, my heart raced. I could see that glimmer of regret, and before she turned away, she whispered, I hope this doesn't come back to haunt you. The moment she vanished into the cafe crowd, the air between us felt electric, charged with unsaid words and unexpressed fears. I was acutely aware of the myriad of eyes now buried in their own conversations, but in that instant, it was just my father and me sitting on the edge of an emotional precipice. I didn't want to burden you with everything, he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. There's so much you don't know. I leaned in, craving clarity in the midst of chaos. Then tell me. What is it that's keeping you from me? The silence that fell was deafening, mirroring the tumult within me. I could see him wrestling with his thoughts, a battle raging between the instinct to protect and the need to be honest. He hesitated, breathing deeply as if to anchor himself. The weight of years pressed down on his shoulders, and I could see the toll it had taken. There are things about my past, about your mother, things that could change everything. That a flicker of fear danced in my gut at the mention of her, but it was mixed with intrigue. What things? He studied me, his eyes locking onto mine, searching for resolve. No matter what I say, you have to promise me you'll stay strong and open. Can you do that? My heart raced, but I nodded. I can handle it. Just tell me. With a shaky breath, he began to speak, and the world around us faded into a distant hum. Your mother didn't just leave. She was taken from us, from you. There are reasons, secrets that have haunted me ever since. My heart pounded, flaring with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Taken? What do you mean? Just as the gravity of his words sank in, his phone buzzed violently on the table. He glanced at the screen, his face blanched as he read the message. It felt like a lightning bolt racing through the air, igniting my anxiety. What is it? I asked, panic rising. That he swallowed hard, eyes widening, and in that second, the wall that began to tremble, felt as though it might collapse. I need to go, he said, his voice frantic, a storm brewing beneath the calm surface. Go? What are you talking about? I reached for his hand, half expecting him to resist, but he didn't, his warmth sinking deep into my palm. There are things happening that I can't explain right now. I need to find answers before it's too late. His expression turned grave, and I felt the cold fingers of dread explore the depths of my heart. That I opened my mouth to argue, but the words disappeared, choked back as the knowledge dawned on me. I could lose him again. Don't go, I whispered, the plea penetrating the heavy atmosphere. He squeezed my hand, his gaze intent, haunted. I promise I'll come back and explain everything. But I need you to wait. Can you do that? I hesitated, torn between the inkling of hope and the dread of yet another departure. But what if you don't? Tears brimmed in my eyes, the distance between us stretching as I felt him slip through my fingers again. His expression tightened, like a man straddling two worlds, yearning to bridge the gap but held back by unseen forces. That I will be back, he vowed, almost as if trying to convince himself. And I'll bring the answers. With one last lingering look, he rose from the table, releasing my hand, retreating into the chaos, disappearing into the crowd that seemed to close around him like a shroud. That I sat frozen, my heart racing, feeling the weight of uncertainty crash over me like a tsunami. As I fought against the tide of emotions threatening to drown me, I whispered to no one but myself, how much longer can I wait? The answer hung in the air, haunting and unresolvable, as the ache of his absence began to take root anew, entwined with the shadows of unsaid truths. That my heart sank, knowing that every second he was gone deepened the chasm between us. More questions hung precariously overhead, waiting to break free, and with every tick of the clock, time slipped further away. As I stared blankly at the empty chair, the unresolved tension twisted in my chest, the fear of losing my father again battling with the flicker of hope he left in his wake. The cafe buzzed around me, a world spinning on while I sat imprisoned in my own thoughts. The abandoned chair opposite me, where my father had just been, felt like a gaping wound on the table. Every passing moment echoed with the weight of his words, the revelation that my mother hadn't chosen to leave but had been taken, ensnared in a web of secrets and past misdeeds I couldn't yet grasp. I tried to focus, but the corners of the cafe blurred into a haze, faces softening as my heart began to thrash wildly against my ribcage. Each heartbeat brought him back to May's promise to return, his warm grip lingering on my fingers. But with every breath, the fear pulsed stronger, tainted by the reality that he might not come back. I stared at the steam curling from my now cold coffee, wishing I could dissolve and escape into the comforting mist. Moments stretched on, twisting until they became an eternity. Finally, I rose from my seat, propelled by an instinct to find him, to weave through the oppressive tide of people, to scream through the noise until he returned, or at least until I found some kind of grounding in the chaos he'd left behind. As I stepped outside, the brisk air clashed with the warmth of the cafe. I felt raw, exposed, as if the world bore witness to my unraveling. I pulled my coat tighter around me against the chill, my breath rising in white clouds, mingling with the sorrow filling the space where hope had once flourished. The streets thrummed with life, laughter spilled from children playing as their parents sipped coffee at sidewalk tables, oblivious to the turmoil raging in my heart. I walked aimlessly, my thoughts whirling with questions. Could my mother still be alive? What had led to her being taken? The sheer uncertainty felt like a fog pressing in from all sides. With every footfall echoing my despair, I found my way to the park, the one where my father and I had spent countless afternoons. It felt sacred yet suffocating, the memories possessing a bittersweet sharpness that dug deep. I sought refuge on a familiar bench beneath a sprawling oak tree, its branches swaying as if sharing my confusion. That I buried my face in my hands, fighting back the prickling of tears. Why can't you just tell me everything? I murmured as if my anger would summon him back to me. Why do secrets have to rule us? A muffled sob escaped before I stifled it, wiping my cheeks furiously with the palm of my hands. I felt a presence beside me and instinctively turned. A stranger, young woman with a kind smile and gentle eyes, sat down, unwittingly breaking the shell of my isolation. Hey, she said softly, concern shadowing her features. You look like you're carrying the weight of the world. Is everything okay? Her voice, though soft, cut through my fog. I hesitated, the urge to confide battling with the instinct to hide my emotions. Not really, I managed, vulnerability lacing my every word. In that moment, something about her presence stirred the air, an unyielding warmth that I hadn't realized I craved. You can talk about it, if you want, she offered, her gaze steady but inviting. As if unleashed, I found myself speaking. My father, our lost years, the wave of doubts crashing within me. Each word poured from my lips, fueled by fear and desperation. With every confession, her eyes widened in understanding, her nods of compassion reflecting my turmoil. I am so sorry, she said gently, placing a hand on my arm. I can't imagine what that must feel like. The gesture, simple yet striking, unraveled the tightness clenching my chest just a little. It was a moment of unexpected kindness, feeling seen without judgment. I just want answers, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. But it feels like the more I search for them, the further away they get. Her brow furrowed with thought. Sometimes, answers come when we least expect them, she replied, the tremor of hope threading through her voice. You might find that instead of searching, you need to wait a little and let life lead you. Before I could absorb her words, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I fished it out to see a text blinking on the screen, a number I didn't recognize. My heart thundered, a mixture of dread and curiosity rose within me. I hurriedly opened the message and gasped, me breathing stilled. I know where your mother is. Meet me. The finality of the words burned into my thoughts like molten steel, the kindness of the stranger blurred in the backdrop as the world sharpened around me. What's wrong? She asked, her concern now evident, but I couldn't respond. Reality had twisted into something more. Excuse me, I have to go, I muttered, scrambling to my feet, a new kind of adrenaline pulsing through me. Wait. She called, but I was already moving, propelled by an urgency I couldn't contain. My heart raced as I dashed through the park, the crowd parting like waves before me. I could feel her eyes on my back, but they faded quickly with the clamor of my thoughts. Who sent the message? Did I dare meet whoever it was? I realized just then that the shadow of a potential answer loomed very close, yet the tension hung thick, a constant reminder that the truth was always laden with danger. I took a deep breath, my feet pounding against the pavement, teetering on the edge of a precipice once more, only this time, I wasn't just waiting to lose someone, I was on the brink of possibly finding them. An answer lay just ahead. And yet I couldn't shake the haunting thought. What if it was a deception, a trap disguised as hope? The alley was narrow, shadows curling around me as I navigated towards the dimly lit location directed by the ominous text. Each step felt heavier, as if the weight of potential truths bore down on my shoulders. I paused, hands trembling as I scrolled through the message again. I know where your mother is. Meet me. My mind raced. Was this a trap? A cruel joke? I shook my head, dismissing the surge of paranoia. I couldn't allow fear to dictate my actions, not now, not when hope flickered so tantalizingly close. Still, an underlying dread skirted my thoughts, a whisper echoing the words my father had uttered. You have to be careful. Trust the right people. As I reached the designated meeting point, a rundown building cloaked in shadows, I hesitated. The door creaked open slightly, the faint light spilling out, casting long, eerie shapes on the pavement. Taking a breath, I stepped inside, the wooden floorboards groaning beneath my weight. Hello? My voice echoed in the silence, trembling with both trepidation and a hint of defiance. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing but with an air of familiarity. My heart lurched. Was it him? Could it be my father? I blinked hard, trying to pierce the darkness, but my hopes fell as the familiar voice emerged, a male I hadn't known in years yet felt an inexplicable connection to. I'm not your father, he began, hands raised in a gesture I had learned to recognize as a peace offering. But I can help you find him. We have to be quick. That I stepped back instinctively, the words tasting bitter. Why should I trust you? Who are you? Every instinct screamed for me to flee, yet a thread of desperation held me rooted in place. That I am someone who knows things, he replied, his gaze steady and earnest. Your mother, she's alive, but time is running out. They're coming for her, and there are those who want to keep the truth buried. The tremor in his voice twisted with my unease. This was no mere charade. What do you mean? What truth? Every syllable dripped with implications I wasn't ready to face, yet the pull of the uncertainty dragged me closer. It's about the past. The decisions your parents made, he said hesitantly. I'm here because your father asked me to find you. At the sound of my father's name, my resolve shifted. What do you know? I pressed, my heart pounding with equal parts fear and determination. Too much to explain right now. They want to silence anyone who knows, he continued, his tone growing urgent. We have to move quickly. Look, I'll show you where they're keeping her, but we need to be careful. People are watching. That a flicker of hope ignited inside of me. The gravity of his words started to sink in as I envisioned my Moth-era concept I fought so hard to cling to now felt tangible, almost within reach. Then let's go, I urged, my voice steadier than the quaking beneath my skin. As we made our way through back streets, the adrenaline coursed through me, quickening my pulse. Though I struggled to breathe through the bombardment of questions, I held on to the vision of my mother's face, which I had conjured 1,000 times in dreams. Why didn't my father come for me? I blurted out, an edge of anger lacing my words. If he knew all of this, why wouldn't he come to tell me? Because it's complicated, he replied, not slowing his pace. He's been trying to protect you from the darkness tied to this family. There are forces at play that even he can't control. We slipped into another alley, the cold bite of the air rattling me from my thoughts. Unwelcome visions of their lives before me danced cruelly in my mind. Me father, lost and broken, my mother's absence like a raw wound in a fabric of lies I couldn't see. The man stopped abruptly, leaning against a wall. His eyes locked onto mine, earnest and filled with an emotion I couldn't place. I need to know that you're willing to do whatever it takes to uncover the truth, he said, his voice urgent yet tinged with something like sympathy. That I don't care what it takes, I just want my mother. My voice wavered as the overwhelming rush of emotion surged back, threatening to swallow me whole. His expression softened momentarily, and as he opened his mouth to speak again, the sudden noise of footsteps echoed behind us, growing louder with the weight of imminent danger. We've got company, he hissed, his demeanor shifting from earnest to guarded as he pulled me deeper into the shadows, hearts pounding as we tucked ourselves away from view. Just then, I felt a vibration coming from my pocket. It was my phone again, buzzing against my side like an unwanted intrusion. My heart raced as I fished it out, glancing down to see a new message flashing across the screen. I can see you. Find him before it's too late. The dread coursed back through me, cold and paralyzing. Who was watching? Who was this new person? And above all, where was my mother? With the convergence of urgency trailing closely behind, the rawness of my emotions forced me to confront the very real possibility that I might be stepping into a web far more dangerous than I could comprehend. The stability I'd yearned for felt agonizingly out of reach, held hostage by secrets that refused to die. The choice was simple, yet hauntingly complex: face the darkness ahead or allow it to consume me, and maybe, just maybe, stumble upon hope hidden in the depths of despair. My breath caught in my throat as the footsteps drew nearer, a relentless rhythm that mirrored the storm of my thoughts. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, but dread gripped my heart like a vice. The man with me held a finger to his lips, eyes narrowed in concentration. We remained frozen in the shadows, my mind racing. Whoever followed us had sinister intentions, and I was stuck in a precarious position, teetering on the edge of truth and uncertainty. The footsteps stopped just outside the alley, the rustle of fabric underscoring the palpable tension. I pressed myself flat against the wall, heart hammering against my chest while I strained to overhear. What do you mean you lost her? A voice blurted, low and menacing. The boss is not going to be pleased. We need her and the boy. We can't afford any more delays. I barely managed to contain a suffocated gasp, my eyes darting to the man beside me. His gaze was fixed on the entrance, a new layer of determination carving harder lines into his face. Please, he whispered urgently, we need to move now before they realize we're here. We pressed deeper into the dark, retracing our path toward the street, pulse racing beneath the burden of unshakable fear. Each step felt precarious, but that flicker of hope to find my mother fueled my resolve as it battled against the chilling uncertainty shrouding our escape. Emerging onto the dimly lit road, we sprinted past dilapidated storefronts, the faint glow of street lamps illuminating what felt like a world on the verge of collapse. I clutched the fabric of my jacket tightly around me, seeking comfort in its familiar warmth, but every second felt like a lifetime. The man glanced sideways at me, his breath strained. We have to get to the old warehouse on Green Street. It's where they're keeping her. But it's crawling with danger. If you want to back out, I understand. I can't promise we'll get out of this alive. I'm not going anywhere, I blurted, a fierce surge of defiance welling within me. She's my mother. You don't get to decide what I do. A flicker of surprise crossed his features, but before he could respond, the screech of tires cut through the night. My heart plummeted as headlights sliced through the darkness, a vehicle skidding to a halt just up the street. Run! He urged, latching onto my arm, pulling me along as we bolted to the nearby alley. I didn't want to look back, I couldn't process the reality racing after us. Fear curled around my senses, but the concept of my mother freed me from its grip momentarily. As we rushed deeper into the labyrinth of shadows, hope flickered with every hurried breath. The urgency of the hour took on a crystalline clarity. My mother was alive, and for the first time in too long, the suffocating absence felt tangible, forming a bridge to the possibility of reunion. Spurred by the thought of her, my legs propelled me further until we rounded the corner of a towering building, the warehouse looming ominously ahead. The height of the walls cast a foreboding shadow over the cracked pavement. There, he pointed, urgency in his tone directing my gaze to the entrance. That's where they're keeping her. My heart leaped at the sight of the heavy metal door, the weight of it symbolizing everything I had fought to uncover. Yet something about the scene pulled at me, a sense of foreboding tightening my stomach. We drew closer, just hidden enough from the guards milling about. Stay close, he whispered, a flicker of something familiar haunting his words. As we crouched behind a pile of shattered crates, I caught my breath. I don't hear her, I murmured, anxiety pooling in my chest as the all-consuming desire to save her weighed heavily in my mind. What if they've already? He looked down at me, compassion threading through his concern. She's strong, just like you, he reassured, though his eyes betrayed apprehension. The time for hesitation vanished as the sound of laughter, cold and mocking, echoed from within the warehouse, shattering the tense silence. Who let you think you could keep her from us? A voice. Taunted, laced with menace. Something in me snapped at that moment. I was not just my mother's child, I was someone worthy of truth. I peeked around the edge of the crates, every pulse of adrenaline urging me forward as my resolve solidified. As we positioned ourselves for an escape route, a sudden realization hit mesomething buried deep in my heart. That man, the one who wants her, he's connected to my father, isn't he? The man beside me hesitated, his silence laden with unspoken truths. My heart raced, understanding loomed just out of reach, but if this was the path to my mother, it didn't stop here. Tell me, I insisted, my voice sharp and urgent. Suddenly, before he could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man, tall and familiar, stepping forward from the entrance of the warehouse. My breath caught as the unmistakable features sharpened into focus. The face that haunted my dreams now stood before me, the very embodiment of my past, my father. But relief was swiftly exchanged for shock when I caught sight of the fear in his eyes, and looming behind him was a figure I hadn't anticipated, her face obscured but the unmistakable contours and the fierce declaration in the air igniting a flame of recognition. Yet just as quickly, my hope dimmed at the sight of familiar, cold steel in my father's hand. You shouldn't have come back, he said quietly, his voice heavy with despair. The cliff of my emotions stood dangerously high, the distance between triumph and torment tipping precariously as I opened my mouth to speak, the echoes of uncertainty unfurling before me, impossible to bridge. The world around me shrank, reduced to the space between my father and the shadows I had traversed to reach this moment. Every thought, every plan I'd concocted in the quiet recesses of my mind crumbled beneath a tidal wave of confusion and unanswered questions. Dad? I managed to choke out, my voice a fragile thread stretched thin. The weight of his presence bore down on me, an amalgamation of longing and resentment that twisted in my chest. He stood there, in the graying moonlight, a man I had only recognized through distant photographs and fading memories, now made flesh but tangibly unnerving. His eyes found mine, those same deep-set orbs that once watched over me in the soft glow of twilight stories, now clouded with something I couldn't decipher. Was it regret? Fear? A protective instinct rendered useless? The air stilled between us, the laughter from within the warehouse fading into an unsettling hush. I didn't come back for you, I finally said, my voice steadier than I felt. Anger surged forth, radical and alive. I came for Mom. He flinched, just slightly, and I could see the battle within him. There was an urgency in the way he shifted his weight, tension crackling. You can't be here. It's not safe. They'll find you. The man beside me shifted, breaking my fixation on my father. Listen, we can't stand here, he urged, a hand clenched at the hem of my jacket. We need to move, but this was my chance, a fleeting, impossible opportunity that could turn the tide of my existence. With a presence that felt almost surreal, I took a step forward, eyes locked onto my father's. I want the truth. Why are you doing this? Why did you leave us? His gaze faltered for a moment, the tight lines on his brow deepening. It's not that simple. If I had a choice, then let me help you, I interrupted, desperation clawing at my throat. Mom is in there, and I know you're not the monster they say you are. A moment passed, one so heavy with the weight of unsaid things that I could almost hear history twisting in upon itself. Yet anger flickered beneath my plea, a scalding spark I didn't quite control. I wanted to reach him, to uncover the truths wrapped around his silence. The sudden slamming of a door nearby jerked both of us back to the moment. From the depths of the warehouse, another figure emerged, his men. They were clad in dark clothing, faces concealed in shadow, and their movements exuded an unsettling familiarity with the threat they presented. Now, we can't waste any time, my father urged, urgency overshadowing his previous hesitance. You need to not without Mom. I shouted, cutting at the fabric of whatever resolve he was trying to weave between us. As if on cue, the guards turned, drawn towards the commotion. A pair of eyes, sharp and calculating, locked onto my father and me. I felt an unfamiliar sense of rebellion swell within me, the kind that drowned out fear and uncertainty. I could not remain a passive figure in this. Go, he murmured, urgency mingling with something like despair. I'll distract them. Dad, no. I cried, fear clawing harder than before as he started to step away, urging me back. The weight of his resolve pressed against me. But before he could make a move, the man beside me grabbed my hand. We need to stick together. There's too many of them. Stop. I screamed as primal instinct took over, ripping me from the turmoil of conflict, and I turned back toward the approaching shadows. You will not take him from me again. I lunged forward, the desperation surging unabated. My body thrummed with a cocktail of adrenaline and fury, a heart full of determination pulsing just under the surface. I've waited 8 years to confront this, I declared, looking straight into the eyes of the approaching guards. You've taken enough from me already. At my words, the guards froze momentarily, confusion flaring in their expressions. My father, caught between the impending danger and the unexpected courage flowing from me, hesitated just long enough for fear to creep in. Go. He shouted, a fierce blend of fear and anger igniting in his voice. Run now. But before I could process his command, before the intuition guiding my instincts could drive me away, one of the guards lunged forward, a powerful stride carrying him toward me. I could see the hungry gleam in his eyes as he moved with inexorably calculated intent. In that flash of an instant, I turned to him, the man with me, a stranger until tonight, yet I found solace in his presence. We were woven into this fabric together. Before I could decide on a plan, our bodies crashed against the cold, unyielding pavement as chaos erupted around us, shadows sprawling as the night screamed louder than our hearts, and just as I thought hope flickered in the darkness, a piercing shout echoed, one that wasn't my own. My mother's voice, fragile yet inflected with strength, seeped from the depths of the warehouse, cleaving through the storm of uncertainty. Help me, please. The world collapsed around us, the sound of her plea shattering everything I'd known, leaving me teetering on the precipice of despair and determination. Laughter turned to panic as that singular cry ignited my blood and my resolve. I turned toward my father one last time, those two familiar eyes meeting mine, recognition sparking something deep within me. We're not done yet, I whispered, feeling the weight of fighting for love, for familia bond one couldn't shake, even in the face of looming darkness. And just as I braced myself to push through the chaos, a twist of fate unfurled before me, a sudden crash as something heavy toppled from a distant corner of the warehouse, a sinister crash unleashing an unforeseen storm into this already tumultuous night, sending tremors through the ground as uncertainty loomed once more. I had to get her, but time was slipping away. Everything narrowed into a singular purpose as the abyss of conflict threatened to swallow us whole. The stakes had risen, and I would not back down again, not this time. I had never been good with chaos. Instinctively, my mind sought order amidst the disarray, but in that moment, with the sound of my mother's plea echoing through the darkness, everything spiraled into a vortex of emotions I couldn't control. Time seemed to stretch infinitely, suffocating in its stillness as I fought to find meaning in the chaos erupting around me. I could feel my heart throbbing in my chest, drowning out the panic rising in my throat. The guards were closing in, their predatory glances threaded with intent. But behind those eyes, I could still see remnants of humanity, shadows of the men they once were before they crossed into the world they now inhabited. I thought of my father, the man who had become both a stranger and a source of yearning in my heart. He was still standing at the edge of the chaos, weighed down by decisions I couldn't fathom. As I crouched low, the cold ground biting into my skin, the chaos escalated behind Meth Crash, echoing a promise and a threat all at once. I could see my father's face, a mask of determination and despair, as if he was caught somewhere between wanting to shield me and needing to save my mother. But it was his gaze that tugged at the frayed edges of my memories, a glimpse of warmth hidden behind the veil of years that had turned innocence into something sharper, more complex. Go. He shouted again, this time blood rising in his voice, an imploring cry that somehow shattered the glassy veneer I had been thrust behind. You have to save her. Amidst the terror that enveloped me, a spark ignited at the base of my resolve. I wasn't just a vessel of mistakes and ambitions, I was part of something larger, a thread in a tapestry woven with love, abandonment, and unyielding connection. But could that tapestry withstand the fraying edges pulled taut from time? With a new clarity pulsing vibrantly, I pulled at the dark cloak of uncertainty wrapped around me and sprang forward. The guards were still distracted, shifting between uncertainty and the hunger for control. I darted low, relying on instinct and that stubborn determination fueled by love, a fierce light pushing through the dark corridor that lay before me. Mom. I called out, desperation tinged with urgency as I headed deeper into the web of shadows and light. Each step echoed with my heartbeat, a melody of longing threading through the close quarters of steel and bone. I'm coming. There was a moment, a fleeting second when everything felt suspended, as if the world were holding its breath. I could see the guards shifting, unsure of pursuing me or delivering their master's command. My father stood at the periphery, eyes blazing with something fierce that clashed with the sorrow masked beneath the surface, a dance of emotions I couldn't begin to decipher, but there was no time for hesitation. With each thrust of my legs, I felt my memories surge forward, like a horrific montage relentlessly playing in my mind, fragments of happiness unearthed in the realms of my childhood swirling amidst the shadow of abandonment my father had cast. I couldn't allow those memories to weigh me down. Oh, they had to fortify my resolve, turning into fuel for an unwavering heart. I spotted the door to the back room, the place from where my mother's cries were seeping like the dawn creeping through the dusk. Hope flickered like a flame within the storm, and I pushed onward despite the brick walls of bitterness that sought to pull me back. My fingers brushed the cold, rusted handle as I yanked it open, adrenaline surging through me like wildfire. Her frightened visage greeted me, her eyes clinging to the child shed lost so many years ago. Mom. I gasped, the weight of her gaze wrapping around my heart, but before I could reach out, before I could gather her into my arms, I noticed the chains wrapped around her wrists, the steel glinting cruelly in the dimness. The sight folded my heart in half, an arrangement of pain that felt alien yet so achingly familiar. Stay back. She warned, her voice wavering, yet fierce as the guards mustered before me, reactions exchanging in swift motion. I felt the cold whisper of fear trailing in their wake, the chains murmured an impossible truth. My mind raced, what new horror had they orchestrated to hold her captive? But within the confines of despair, amid the darkness devouring reason, a thread of kindness coiled tightly around my heart. I had fought through shadows, and now flickers of light ignited my decision. In an act of sheer will, I ran to her, dove into the fray of uncertainty, of chaos, of raw emotion. But then, the staggering weight of revelation crashed against me as I turned my head, catching sight of one guard stepping forward, his identity becoming disturbingly clear as he moved like a phantom through the encroaching shadows. Layla, the voice was guttural yet familiar. The face of someone I once called my ally, now twisted in loyalty to an empire built upon pain, me childhood friend turned mercenary, a specter mocking my resolve. Jake? I whispered, disbelief stealing my breath. As shock settled like a fog, everything teetered at the brink of chaos, a sudden revelation igniting the dawn of an unwelcome truth. The world had shifted again, and I would have to confront not just the shadows that haunted me but the ghosts from my past forever entwined in this nightly storm. My resolve cooled, tightening like a noose around my heart as I prepared to discover if the love I fought for could withstand the ultimate test, or whether this connection would splinter in a moment's betrayal before the dawn could even rise. The air crackled with tension, an electric pulse that shot through me as I stared at Jake, the the boy who once rode bikes down sunlit streets beside me, now clad in the armor of a soldier turned betrayer. My heart raced, caught in a whirlwind of emotions I couldn't place. Friends, once united in laughter and dreams, now divided by choices that drew stark lines in the sand. Layla, he repeated, but the warmth that once accompanied my name on his lips was now twisted with the weight of duty and betrayal. Why? I asked, words teetering on the edge of disbelief as awareness settled in. I took a step back, drawn to my mother's chains, her pain demanding my attention, while Jake's presence morphed into a disorientating haze. How could you do this? My voice trembled, raw with confusion and heartache. Things change, he replied, a flash of something regret, crossing his features before it was extinguished by the resolve that had become his armor. You don't understand how it is out here, Layla. We're fighting for survival. Survival? I spat, disbelief slicing through the fog in my mind. You think this is survival? Look at her. I gestured wildly to my mother, the chains now not just symbols of her captivity but mirrors reflecting the brokenness implemented by a system we never asked to be part of. Enough. Another guard, hardened and filled with malice, stepped forward, every bit of his intention palpable, as if I were being tugged by strings in a grotesque puppet show. This is no place for sentiment. Jake's expression flickered, the seams of compliance unraveling. We need to leave now. Before anyone else gets hurt, he implored, his gaze darting between me and the guard, an echo of the loyalty we once shared still clinging to the surface. Restless. Leave? My chest constricted, the fabric of hope weaving tighter, but the threads were frayed. What use was survival if it meant abandoning my mother to this nightmare? I won't leave her. You were supposed to protect us, Layla, please. Jake stepped closer, a plea laced with desperation. I don't want you to be caught in this. We can save you both if you just follow me. Panic threatened to consume me. The emotion flooded my senses, battling with the raging flames of loss and fear sparking within. I was caught between the image of my mother's desperate eyes and the memory of friendship, the dreams we had sewn together now buried under the weight of betrayal. Let her go. I shouted, unleashing all the fury coursing through my veins. You know this is wrong. You can't just stand back and watch. For a brief moment, the storm of conflict occupied Jake's face as he grappled with the flickering shadows of loyalty and the haunting memories of who we once were. But as the guard laughed, a sound void of anything resembling kindness, the flicker began to fade, and doubt seeped through the crack. Stand down. The guard ordered, raising his weapon threateningly as Jake hesitated, caught between me and an order that would unleash chaos again. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed down the corridor, sending shudders through the brittle atmosphere. It reverberated against the walls, a warning shot that illuminated the tension. The guards scattered, momentarily distracted, fear rippling through their ranks. In that split second, an unexpected glimmer of hope flickered in my chest. Mom. I rushed towards her, an unyielding force propelling me through wild uncertainty. I reached for the chains, the cold metal teetering dangerously at the junction of despair and freedom. But how to free her without placing my own life at risk? Jake! I cried, glancing back at him, the choice suspended like a thread pulled taut. Help us. His eyes, once so familiar, were clouds of indecision, drifting far away from the boy I had known. But beneath the tangled layers, the hint of Longinga glimmer of what we once shared lingered still. Sensing that I could lose both my mother and the last vestige of our friendship, I locked eyes with him, daring him to cross the space between duty and desperation. Suddenly, the guards regained their composure, regrouping as they realized the chaos unfolding. One of them brandished a rusted baton, eyes narrowing as he stalked toward us. Layla. Jake's voice broke through the gathering storm. We have to go, now. But just as he reached my side to help untangle my mother from her torment, an alarm blared, piercing the tension like a knife. It felt as if the world tilted on its axis, the moment twisting into chaos again. The guards shouted commands, scrambling to respond to the greater threat. I could feel the energy shifting, reality bonding tightly around us, but the darkness crept closer, like a canvas bleeding ink into water, and that's when it happened. A revelation that sliced through the chaos with a cold precision. I turned to face my mother, searching her eyes as if to find solace in their depths, but instead, I saw something else, a flicker of recognition that crawled across her face. And then she whispered something barely audible, her eyes wide as if she had witnessed a ghost. "Layla, your father, he's not who you think he is." The words struck like lightning, reverberating through me, laced with an echo of dread I never wanted to encounter. In that moment, I felt my heart drop into the abyss, the daunting cliffs of reality pressing down upon me. The thread binding our destinies wavered, and as truth materialized amidst the chaos, all I could think was, could we truly face whatever lay ahead together, or would the bonds of betrayal shred the very fabric of our existence before we had the chance to fight back? The room spun as my mother's revelation echoed in my mind. The air crackled with tension, each heartbeat a drum pounding against the walls of the warehouse, a haunting reminder of everything I had fought to reclaim. "Layla, you have to listen to me," she urged, desperation and fear igniting her voice. My thoughts were a jumbled mess, entwined with shock and disbelief. "Your father, he's made choices you can't understand. They have consequences, but he's my father. You just don't know him like I do," I shouted, frustration spilling over, punctuated by the guard's advancing footsteps. The knowledge churned in my stomach, festering with uncertainty. How could my mother, the very embodiment of nurturing, cast doubt upon the man I had strived so hard to connect with? The guards were close now. I could see their shadows flicker against the walls, a relentless drumbeat of authority suffocating the air around us. I had no more time for doubt. My pulse quickened as I turned back to my mother, the whirlwind of chaos pooling into singular focus. "We have to get out, together," I blurted, grasping her hands, searching for fledgling hope in her trembling touch. "Can you walk? I've tried for too long to protect you from the truth," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes, pulling me closer. "But there's a darkness that surrounds our family, Layla. Your father's entwined in a world I thought I could shield you from, but I can't anymore. Please, just tell me the truth." My heart splintered as I could see the turmoil reflected in her face, the emotions writhing like trapped butterflies. Whatever had happened in the years since she vanished, it had etched scars across her spirit. The guard shouted again, the panic in his voice snapping me back to the moment. "You have to choose," he barked, advancing toward us with the weight of authority almost palpable. "This ends now." "No," I screamed, the defiance surging through my veins as I faced him, anger igniting a flame I thought might consume me. "You can't take her again. I won't let you." The word echoed in the air, the resolve born from the depths of my heart cascading outward. But as I turned back to my mother, reality shifted. I could feel its looming shadow of betrayal tethered to my father, twisting around us like chains in a prison. "Layla, trust your instincts. You need to leave, but you must be strong. If he cared about us, if he truly loved you." My breath caught as I saw the anguish in her eyes. The chains wrapped around her wrists gleamed in the light, an emblem of everything that had been taken from us. I had promised myself I would free her, so I pulled back, reaching for the clasp, frantic but determined. "It's okay," I reassured her. "We can figure this out together." The hope that surged like wildfire in my chest was wounded when I felt the jagged edge of truth. "Layla, this is it. You need to go." Jake's voice pulled me back to the present, his urgency the tether I needed to not spiral into despair. I turned to him, desperate to understand. "What's your connection to my father? What's happening?" "He's involved with people you can't imagine. Decisions that led to your mother's abduction and everything." His eyes softened, the memories almost tangible between us. "I'm trying to protect you from the storm that's coming." But just then, the guards burst forward, unaware of the truth dangling just out of reach. Their shadows loomed like storms on the horizon, intentions dark as night. They moved as a unit, heartbeats synchronized with the chaos that unfurled around us. "Everyone, freeze!" one of them bellowed. In a flash, Jake lunged towards me, and just as our hands connected, the world erupted. I could feel the collective gasp of my surroundings, hearts frozen in that single moment of revelation and chaos. My mother's expression coalesced into something new, a fierce determination igniting behind her eyes. "Layla, we're running out of time." The weight of his words, Jake's plea mingling with my mother's command, compressed air into desperation. I tore my gaze from the emerging shadows and pulled my mother's wrists into my hands, willing the chains to yield. "Now," I urged, adrenaline coursing through me, fueling my resolve as fear clawed at my heart. But full clarity struck then. what lay behind that door wasn't just choice, it was uncertainty woven with sacrifice. "Mom!" I called out, and as if my voice summoned the storm, the world shifted anew, raw and fierce, and then it hit me. His was not just my journey, my search for parental love, nor was it solely my mother's fight. It unveiled deeper realities, the strings of familial ties wound tightly around dark choices. Love was not enough, nor was fear. The truth lay beyond all of it, a murky tide that surged and receded, leaving destruction in its wake. My fingers released her chains just as the guards descended, their shouts colliding with the tumult in my mind. I stood there unraveling everything I had ever believed in, fracturing the mask every family should wear. "Run!" I shouted, urgency lacing my voice as I pulled my mother toward the exit. "Now! Get out! I'll figure this out." As we broke through the doorway, the world spun. I felt the weight of my shattered past swell behind us, but strength surged forward, a tether unraveling every binding I had carried for so long. "Layla!" My heart broke again as I spun around, knowing I could drown in this storm of fear or face it head on, propelled by the flame of all that I had fought to reclaim. "You are stronger than you know." Before I could hesitate, my mother nodded, a thread of unity weaving between us amidst the chaos. With every step, under the oppressive weight of shadows trailing behind us, I ran to freedom, to truth, to whatever awaited us beyond the darkness, and just like that, I realized this wasn't merely the end, but the crucial shift into a new beginning. Whatever shadows lay ahead would either threaten us or bind our souls together in an inextricable dance of hope and courage. As we burst into the cool air, leaving the past behind, an inexplicable part of me whispered maybe, just maybe, secrets hidden in the dark could finally be washed away in the light of truth. As I ran, hand clasped tightly with my mother's, we tore through the veil, leaving our fears behind as I whispered the hope that had surged within, "I'll never stop fighting for us." And as the sun began to rise, I understood I was more than my past or my father's shadows. I was a force to be reckoned with, standing on the cusp of something undiscovered, where love would unravel the dark, making way for unbreakable bonds forged in the fires of truth.